just had a great call with a really awesome friend, amazing guy. We just haven't been able to catch up in a while, and it was awesome. I just love the voice to voice, face to face conversations. For me, are just so nice, and especially with people who are just good long-term friends, you just kind of like hit the ground rolling. It's like almost like you didn't miss a beat. Obviously, you got to catch up on life events, but just the flow of the conversation, the back and forth, the joke, the tempo, cadence of the convo, it's just like you're right back in it. That's a good feeling. It's an at-home feeling. And we hadn't caught up in a while. And that's my favorite way to do it. And it's funny because it's like I love all the other ways of chatting. Like the fact you can have a relationship and a friendship that is like heavily sustained off of memes is pretty incredible. Some people might say it's like a superficial, vapid way, like that, and then like Twitter or GIFs, DMs, texts, things like that. And what's funny about this is I really actually find all that stuff really cool. I think it's so neat how many different ways human beings have figured out how to communicate with each other. And then, that communication type just becomes a part of our life and our culture. Like Twitter was a great example of that. Like there's just like meme culture is like an incredible example of that. And, in all honesty too, I'm probably, anyone who knows me well can tell you, I'm like the worst texter. And pretty poor, long distance communicator in general. So maybe some irony there, but I do really admire all the different forms of communication. So I might not be a great practitioner, but I can still appreciate it for sure. Anyway, we were catching up, and like everybody in their early or late 30s, early 40s who are into fitness, we were talking about jujitsu, other various things. And what I wanted to talk about here was the fact that he was talking about how he was focusing a little bit more on like the fitness lately, getting back to that side of things and enjoying it. And he really likes jujitsu and has been doing it for a while. And I was sharing with him that I think jujitsu is really cool. I'm really interested in it. I grew up doing different types of judo, jujitsu, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and things like that. And for anyone who does those things, I don't have to explain like all the fulfilling reasons of why it's interesting and cool to do something like that. He was talking about like how tuned in it makes you, and shared some other examples, but like how tuned in it makes you and kind of pushes the rest of the world out, because you got to be focused on this thing, because there are like, if you're like sparring or in a match, like there's some high stakes there for sure. But what I was sharing with him was I'm really interested in it, but I think I'm like genuinely a little scared of it. And this could be partially because I don't want to be a beginner again, though that might be it. I don't think that's it, because I do like learning. It's fun to not know a lot about something, because the early path of a learner is like so accelerated. And kind of like when we tell people when they first start CrossFit, it's like you're going to have some sort of PR, every week. And the PR frequency kind of changes the longer you do it. And you have to reframe how to measure the progress, and reframe how to like self-evaluate. But so I don't think it's that. But honestly, I think I'm afraid of getting hurt. And maybe that's a cop-out, I thought his answer, I didn't really have a response for, and it was really compelling. But I just have a fair amount of friends that do it, and I feel like they have gotten some sort of injury from it. And the one thing my buddy said to me first, he goes, well, you could, roll your ankle walking the dog, which made me laugh, because I think in the last 6 months, I've had more injuries from training, walking, playing, running, biking with the dogs than probably anything else in the last couple of years of my life. So that was a really good point. The other thing he was talking about, and I've heard this from others, but to hear it from him, somebody I really trust, was pretty compelling. And he was just saying, like, you do have the possibility to do this and learn this in a way that's, I don't want to say like a coddled environment, but like at your own speed. And he was kind of sharing some insight there about like how to develop this and learn it. And obviously it's like anything, like where do you want it to go? So it was cool. It was cool to just hear that. But it made me think of, I do think it's really important to like every once in a while share what you're afraid of with somebody. Especially if you find yourself, saying like, I really want to do this thing, and then you never do it. And there's a couple reasons that happens. One, life's busy. We procrastinate. We use hyperbolic language with people. So you're like, oh, I'm so excited to do this thing, but I just haven't been able to get to it. Well, then really, how excited are you? Maybe you actually are afraid of it. Another reason is maybe you just want people to, be interested in what you're saying. So you're like really hyping it up, or you're talking about it to relate to them. But, it was a good thought experiment for me to just be like, well, why do I talk about this? And I think about it a decent amount as far as things that I don't regularly do. I think about jiu-jitsu a little bit. And I wonder if it is a fear thing. And it's cool to kind of have some time to think about that. And it's always neat to reflect that kind of stuff when you've shared it with somebody else. And I think it's important. And especially not to just share it in a superficial way, say something like, oh, that's really scary. But to say like, hey, there's something about this that makes me uncomfortable. There's an outcome associated with it that I'm not willing to accept right now in order to be able to do that thing. So I felt like that was important today. And then the other thing I'd wanted to talk about was sarcasm. And the reason I want to talk about sarcasm is just because I was thinking about it a little bit the other day. And just like the words we use to, present ourselves to others, how we sort of go about our daily life, what our types of humor are. And for me, like, I would say something like sarcasm is a love language, but I don't really think it could be that by nature of what it is. Obviously you might be someone who likes to talk shit, and go back and forth and ball bust and that kind of stuff. But I don't know if it's a love language, because at some point I don't always think it's felt as love by other people, even if it's like you just feel most comfortable with that person. So you're just willing to be edgier with them or like push the limits with it. So I don't know if that's really the case. It's kind of funny. A buddy a long time ago I used to work with, he's a great guy. But was kind of like really just, he would always find these like really funny things. And he found this one list once, and it was like, I don't know, the man rule list. And it had all this stuff on it, like, eat a steak, go on a riverboat gambling cruise, shit with the door open. And one of the things on there was like, talk massive shit, talk a lot of smack. And I loved that. And I love being around people who like to do that. I think what's challenging about it, and one of the things you got to be aware of, is that at some point, it probably feels to somebody in that conversation that there's truth in jest. And words obviously can't hurt you, but I think sometimes it's probably a shocker when you're like, oh, my friend just went there. He just said that. So I think it's good to be aware of that. And also, a long time ago, I looked at this and it kind of changed my perspective on this. And probably a lot of people know this, but like sarcasm, I guess the origin of the word means something like to tear at the flesh, which when you really sit down and think about that, and then you really sit down and think about like how sarcasm can be used, even if you're starting off joking, if you keep like piling it on and using more and more and more, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of rough. That is sort of what it does. 'Cause fundamentally you are like mocking somebody to like convey something that you don't like about what they're doing, or that might be unlikable about something they're doing. And I just felt like that was interesting. I was thinking about it a lot the other day as you kind of like navigate the world and talk to other people. And it just it felt a little important to reflect on that kind of thing and rudder adjust that. And like, even if you are someone who likes to like, rib other people or bust balls, that kind of shit. And even if they're entertaining in it, there really is like an art and method to doing so many things. Like I definitely, as I've gotten into this podcast more, and like anything, I think there's a too much and too little, but I'm definitely someone who thinks that it's good to live a self-examined life. And I want a lot of my life to be intentional. And which is funny because like I also love surprises and not knowing and just like whatever is going to happen next. I really admire that. But as far as like me functioning in the world, I do want there to be some intention behind that most of the time. And I think if you're just always haphazard, you could take something like sarcasm way too far, or even, other things. So the art to everything is like another podcast topic I want to chat about. Kind of a neat life lesson I learned from a relative. So maybe we'll get there. No workout today. Run with the dogs. Back on the workout track tomorrow. So we'll see you then.